Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. In today's episode, I received a report from a guy who served in the National Guard. He was out on a nighttime practice mission when he encountered a very man-like beast in the wilderness. While not fully being able to make out what he was looking at, he still wonders to this day if what he saw was a Bigfoot. This is a report I hear a lot from campers, and it seems like the Bigfoots get extremely curious and want to come in for a better look. The caller is not saying it was Bigfoot 100%, but he felt very compelled to tell his story and share it with the rest of the world. I want to personally thank him for rising up and doing what any real American should do. Alright, let's dive into this next story. Welcome to Sasquatch Theory, and I appreciate you getting in contact with me and taking the call. If you would, could you take us through your encounters from the beginning?
Yeah, for sure. I guess I'll just start at the beginning. This took place in near Pittsfield, Massachusetts. At the time, I was in an infantry unit for the Army. It was National Guard, and it was like a drill weekend. The year was 2000, like mid to late fall, so it was kind of cold out. It was night, like a full moon, half, like 3/4 to a full moon. I can't remember exactly, but it was fairly bright considering it was nighttime. And we were doing a nighttime training, where it was like a search and recovery, search and rescue type training. So it was myself and two other soldiers that we were going to be out basically in the middle of the woods, kind of just chilling, waiting for the rest of the unit to come and find us. So everybody kind of got together. We kind of formulated a plan as to what we were going to be doing for our training. So everybody was on the same page. So then myself and these two other soldiers, we went out, kind of found a good, I guess you call it, hiding spot. And we kind of just, took our place. We're just kind of just relaxing. We weren't talking. We didn't have any lights on because, again, we were just trying to remain hidden so that we weren't like a bright light in the woods where the unit could just come up and find us easily. It was supposed to be a difficult task for them kind of find us. So that's why we didn't have any lights on. We weren't talking. We were being quiet. So kind of like I said, it was dark, kind of cold, and myself and the two other soldiers, I was an E3. The other two people who were with me were E1s. And so we're out there. We'd been out there for, at the time, I don't know, probably about an hour or an hour and a half, maybe. And I remember hearing something walking around in the woods around us. I couldn't really see anything. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's just a deer or something. So I didn't really even pay too much attention to it until I saw something like walking in front of us. And it went from walking parallel to our position to walking towards us. Again, I don't know what it was. It was fairly tall, probably about 6 to 6.5 feet tall. I would describe it as a human-like shape. I couldn't see the face because it was facing towards us, and obviously the moon was behind it. So really all I could see was a silhouette of whatever it was. But like I said, it had the shape of a person, tall, but I would explain it as a fairly muscular person, but extremely hairy. almost like if you would like see a gorilla standing up on its legs, but with a gorilla, the legs and arms aren't proportionate. Like the arms are longer, whereas the arms and the legs were pretty proportionate. Again, kind of like to the proportions of a person, where nothing looked longer. Like the arms didn't look longer than the legs, and the legs didn't look shorter than the arms. It was fairly equal in length. But again, it was probably about 6 to 6.5 feet tall. Very, very long hair. The hair was probably about, I would venture to guess, like 4.5 inches long. And shortly after we saw it walking towards us, I kind of looked at the other two guys real quick, and they were both staring at whatever this was too. So at that point, I kind of got a little bit scared, but I was kind of just watching. It stayed there for probably, I'd venture to guess, probably like around a minute or so. And then I heard movement coming from the left of our position. So I looked to our left, and I saw lights, and automatically knew, because of the lights and movement, it was the unit coming to find us. The rest of the unit. So I saw the formation coming towards us. When I looked back, whatever this figure was gone. I don't remember hearing it leave, and I don't remember seeing it leave. Fast forward a little bit, when we got back to like, I guess I'd call it our headquarters, but when we got back to our unit, our base, I talked to the other two guys that we were with, and they really didn't want to talk about it at all. They kind of just avoided the subject, but I did get out a little bit of information that when I looked to our left to see the unit coming towards us, they apparently didn't. They were pretty much trained in on whatever this thing was. They said that when it left, but they said it only took like just a couple of steps, and it's almost like it just vanished, kind of just disappeared. Which would make sense, because when I looked away to see the unit coming towards us and looked back towards whatever this thing was, it was gone. And I didn't really look away for minutes. It was maybe 10 seconds, maybe I looked at the coming formation, saw like, okay, kind of registered, yep, that's them. And then when I looked back, whatever this thing was gone. So it kind of adds up as to what they were saying, what they saw. So now I'll go back again to where I first saw the rest of the unit coming towards us. They came and found us. And then I went and talked to the commander and just asked him, hey, did you have a scout or somebody who came to see us or find us before the rest of the formation? And he was like, no, we didn't have any scouts. We're all together, and you three, you're the only ones who are not with us right now. And then he asked me, why would you ask that anyway, though? And I kind of just said, well, the other two guys said they thought they saw something, but I think it was just a deer and it spooked them. And he apparently thought that was funny, and we kind of chuckled about it. And then we went back to the trucks to load up and leave. And one weird thing with that night too is one of the soldiers, none of the other two that I was with or myself, but it was somebody else in the unit, had misplaced one of the M16s. So we had to find that before we left. And I only bring that up just because we did have weapons, but we didn't have any ammunition. So it's just like it's a training scenario where whenever you do training, you always have your weapon with. but we didn't have magazines and we didn't have any ammo. So I mean, it was a really short encounter. It maybe lasted like 45 seconds to a minute. And whatever it was fairly close. If I had to venture a guess, I'd probably say 15 to 20 feet, probably something around that distance.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I mean, I couldn't really see a face. All I really saw was the silhouette of whatever it was, and the height and the outline, and that was about it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I hear that a lot from people that they see something standing there, and it's a lot of times at nighttime when they see it, and when they look back to tell their friend or their buddy, and they look back towards the creature, it's already gone.
Right.
Did so you never heard your two other friends say anything about it, or the people that you were out there with?
No, the other two soldiers I was with, they did not want to talk about it at all. I really had to kind of press to get some information out of them, and the only thing that they would even talk about was at the very end of the encounter, when I looked away, saw the rest of the formation coming towards us, saw them look back, and it was gone. And they didn't look away, because they both told me they pretty much the exact same story. And I talked to both of them separately, so it wasn't like they were together. It was kind of I talked to one guy about it. He didn't really want to talk about it, but I kept asking him, and finally he told me his side. Same thing, where it was, yeah, man, it was all of a sudden it turned, started walking the same direction, took, I don't know, however many steps, 5 steps, and it was just gone. Like, it just vanished. Went and talked to the other guy, and his story was almost exactly the same. Just a few steps took, and all of a sudden it was just gone. Like, it just vanished into thin air.
Right. Huh. Yeah, that's a creepy encounter there. Did you wonder for the rest of your life if it was Bigfoot, or did you think like some other platoon was out there, or I don't know, squadron maybe doing a training mission?
I really don't think so. I mean, even if I've seen people in ghillie suits before. This didn't look like that. It for sure looked like some sort of hair or fur. It looked like an animal, but no animal I've ever seen before. I know some people, and I try to be a critical thinker on a lot of this type of stuff, where I don't easily believe anything that I see. So I always question everything. So sometimes I think, well, maybe somebody saw, they mistook a bear, for something, but whatever this was, it wasn't a bear. Because bears, they don't have the length of arms and legs that a person does. They're shaped differently. This was shaped so much, like, if it didn't have hair, I would have sworn it was just a person just standing there. But it had, whatever it was, had really long hair. Like I said, kind of like a gorilla or an ape, but just longer hair than that. Almost like I guess the length of hair like an orangutan would have, but just way bigger than orangutan. Just like I said, kind of 6 to 6.5 feet tall. So
yeah, did it have a neck at all?
Not really to speak of, because it basically, I remember the shoulders were huge. Like, the way I imagine it is like the biggest linebacker I've ever seen. Like the sheer broadness of the shoulders. That's kind of how I try to explain it. And just muscular features of the arms and legs. Like I said, I guess I would try to explain it kind of like an extremely muscular linebacker. That type of builds to it, but I don't really remember seeing a neck. It was kind of shoulders and head.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good description of it. What do you think they are?
Like, you mean Bigfoot in general?
Yeah. Do you think it's a physical creature? Do you think this is something paranormal and UFO related?
I mean, that's a really good question. I honestly think it's some sort of great ape, or our closest relative. And it's still wild. I'm thinking that perhaps, people talk about, well, how come we've never found a body, or how come we never find a skeleton or bones or anything? And perhaps this creature is way smarter than we give it credit for. And obviously, if it is real and we haven't found it, obviously it's smart.
Mm.
But maybe they bury their dead. And if they bury their dead, then we wouldn't find a body. We wouldn't find a skeleton. And that's saying if a person came upon it shortly after they did bury it or whatever. But, and just in general, skeletons don't really last that long anyway. I mean, you'd have to really come upon it fairly shortly after it died in order to find something. But I mean, that's my thought. Maybe they just bury their dead, and that's really why we haven't found anything. But
Yeah.
I think they're a physical creature.
Yeah, it could be. So you never had a chance to go back and investigate because, you're out there working, and when they tell you it's time to go, it's time to go. You can't just really go look around.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I could have gone back, like I said, it was the National Guard. So I mean, I could have gone back after the fact. It's just I never did. I didn't really want to go back either, because it was creepy. And if I hadn't been with those two other people, the two other soldiers that I was with, I probably would have freaked out a lot more than I did. And having a rifle by me didn't really help any, because I knew I didn't have any ammunition anyway. But either way, I got scared, but I wasn't terrified. I didn't feel like it meant harm. I think it was just kind of curious. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it just kind of stood there and just looked. Almost like it was studying us, or just
like a deer would.
Yeah, kind of. Or like, I don't know if you've ever gone to the zoo and you see the gorillas, and sometimes they stare at you just as much as you're looking at them. It was something kind of like that, where like it was just curious as to what we were doing there and what was happening. Because like I said, it didn't throw anything at us. It didn't snarl. It didn't growl. I didn't really hear any noises whatsoever. So I didn't really feel threatened. It's just, I think why I got scared is because, first off, I had never seen anything like that before. So I didn't know if it meant us harm or not. It's just, it was scary, because all of a sudden, like, holy crap, what is that thing?
Right. Can you briefly explain the terrain and what you guys were wearing and how you guys were laying, or if you guys were standing? I mean, you may have said that already, but I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, we were in our BDUs, our battle dress uniform, which is like the camo outfit. We had combat boots on. We had hats on. So we were full camouflage. We were laying down. I was laying on my stomach. The other two guys, the guy on my left was on his side, and the guy on my right was on his back. So like I said, we were kind of just relaxing. I had my rifle right underneath my right arm. The guy on my left, I don't know where he had his rifle. I couldn't really see it. And the guy on my right, he was just kind of holding his.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we saw this thing, nobody really reached for their rifles. I think partly because we all knew they didn't have ammunition anyway, but I think we're all just kind of in shock just looking at this thing. And yeah, I don't know. It just kind of we're stuck just staring at it.
Yeah, and like when you see something like this, your initial reaction isn't grab the rifle or grab your phone, because your brain's trying to find a place to put it and it doesn't know where to place it, and it's just trying to scan what it is, And I think by that point, it's just too late to be like, oh man, I should have took video footage, when I saw this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think for me, and I can't talk for the other two because I don't know what was going through their brains, but I think for me it was like fight or flight response, and I was still trying to figure out, okay, what should I do? Do I just lay here? Do I wait until it tries to charge us and hurt us, or do we?
Right. That's the first thought. Should I run or should I stay? And then trying to figure that out. Precisely.
So that's kind of what was going through my mind at the time. And like I said, I I didn't feel like whatever it was hostile. So I kind of just was like, all right, well, I guess let's just see what happens, you know? And, like I said, it didn't, that's why I wasn't more terrified or more scared and didn't do anything differently. Cause I was scared and I was a little bit afraid, you know, but I wasn't so terrified, like, oh my God, this thing is going to try and kill us. It was just, oh my God, what is that? And then I think that's what caused the fear a little bit.
Yeah, and I think luck was on your side, because if you had been out there alone and maybe you had more time to spend out there, I think it would have been more intimidating. The fact that the rest of the group was already heading down the road when you guys had the encounter kind of saved you guys from a potential situation. But if you'd been out there alone and nobody was going to come get you, I bet it would have been a completely different story.
Yeah, and that's completely possible. And you know, and funny that you mentioned that too, because I wonder if these things are kind of like people are, you know, where you've got some good people and some bad people. I think it's the same scenario, because you hear some stories of people who have encounters with Bigfoot. I'm not saying that that's what this was, but I've heard some scenarios where some people have, you know, encounters with Bigfoot, and whatever it is, it's upset. It's almost like it's out for blood and it wants to hurt somebody or kill somebody. And then other times people have encounters and they're calm. They're not trying to hurt anyone. They're not trying to scare anybody. It's like they're just out there, just kind of curious and trying to find out who is there and what they're up to.
Right, exactly. And I think like when they try to hurt people, the story gets out there more because multiple people witness it. It's almost like the Sasquatch has to put himself out there to do what he needs to do to terrorize people. But like when somebody catches a quick glimpse, nobody really seems to believe that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you I don't know if you want to tell people necessarily what state you live in now, but the location that you explained to me, that sounds like a really good place to have a Sasquatch encounter.
Yeah, it was it was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I don't live there anymore. I've moved out of that state now. I live in Minnesota now, but where that took place, it was a heavily forested area. So we had to jump on some trucks and drive out to a location purely just for training purposes. And they wanted to make sure that it was like an authentic training scenario, you know. So yeah, we were like basically out in the middle of nowhere, just out in the middle of the woods.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, so I mean, it was like
I don't know much about Massachusetts, but I know that in northern Minnesota, it's heavily forested, and that's where a lot of the Bigfoot encounters are taking place. That's more where I was referring to. But
oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, and since I've been in Minnesota, I haven't seen anything here. I've heard of a couple of people around here who have seen and heard things that they couldn't explain. But I personally haven't come across anything here.
Yeah. Now, is that like by the Superior Forest or just up towards Canada, I guess?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Well, yeah, I appreciate you taking the call again, and if you have any questions or concerns, you can get a hold of me, or maybe you decide you want to go out again one day and look for more answers, you can hit me up and kind of give you some guidance.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, man. Well, you take care, and you have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Yep, bye-bye.
So my theory is the Sasquatch had no clue the soldiers were in the area until it was too late. When the other company began to drive to their position is when I believe the Sasquatch realized what these beings were. Quickly correcting itself, it melted back into the forest, knowing that it had the upper hand, with 1, being a Sasquatch, 2, the darkness, and 3, the deep forest. Thank you everyone for listening and supporting Sasquatch Theory. Take care.